Welcome to the Legion Outriders podcast.
You've got a lot of guts coming here.
Your source for the latest Legion news, opinion, and analysis.
You must unlearn what you have learned.
And now, here's your hosts.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
John Archiquette.
Will somebody get this big walking carpet out of my way?
Matt Turner.
I'm not afraid.
And Joshua Gray.
You will be.
Welcome back, Outriders, to the Legion Outrider podcast with John, Josh, and Matt, coming at you from Power 9 Games in the hive of scum and villainy. Back again for another week of great Star Wars Legion talk. What's going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going? I played the game!
Finally!
I played the game! Yay, I'm so happy.
Did we record this 2 weeks ago when the game actually came out?
No, it was
no, it was pretty.
We recorded last Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You waited this long to get a game in.
Well, Josh finally got some games in after his, spring break that wasn't spring break.
No, I didn't
Spring
wait.
chore.
I was held hostage.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I love my kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hashtag disclaimer.
But Matt and I got a chance to get a few more games in over the last, week and a half since the last time we did a show. And I think one of the things I was a little worried about was, are we going to have things to talk about? Because last weekend, Fantasy Flight didn't drop any big news on us. And
Still waiting on those tournament packs.
Yeah. Well, it was Easter
At least
weekend.
We got Army lists. We got the Army list sheet
Yep, we
today.
got that.
The PDF.
So,
Woo!
Yeah. Well, hey, it's a start. It's something.
It wasn't a big weekend release, but they
Yeah.
did give us a little bit more information on the upcoming General Veers expansion, which
I'm so excited.
we were going to talk about at length later on today because we got a lot of stuff to talk about with him. He's going to shake up the meta, I think.
Wow.
And of course, one of the other things that's starting to shape up, we've gotten the first couple games out of the way, but we're starting to learn about the games within the game and the game before the game. And I think
The pregame game.
the pregame game.
Yeah.
Yo, dog, we heard you like games. So we put games in your game so you can game while you're gaming.
Is that where you get drunk at home before you head to the bar, or?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to talk about the deployment cards, the different scenario cards, and the ways to play those cards to your advantage when you're lining up with your opponent and looking at what your army list contains. So we all have stuff to talk about with that. But first, let's get into the Star Wars news. What kind of stuff we have going on, Matt?
Well, pretty quiet. A few interesting things came out, though. We saw that Solo is actually going to be entered into the Cannes Film Festival. So that's pretty bold. I don't think a lot of people are expecting that. Josh, as a cinephile, I think you were...
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, that's not the kind of movie that, Shape of Water and things like that, The Piano. Those are the kind of movies that go...
That you love
that
the
go
most,
that
yes.
go to Cannes.
Yeah.
And it's Cannes, I think. But anyways,
man, never mind.
I put my pinky up in the air as I said that.
So it looks like people are going to get a sneak peek at Solo on the 15th before it releases on the 25th for
Bold
a general
strategy,
audience.
though.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what the initial feedback is going to be from that.
See, and I mean, that's not your core audience. As moviegoers go...
We'll wait to hear from the pinky twirlers.
Sure,
and then we'll,
no, but I mean, that's where you go and you show art movies and you show movies that have feeling
Solo
and message.
is art.
But if you look at the way that Star Wars, the last couple of movies have been, kind of released, they've gotten a lot of critical acclaim. Mm-hmm. Force Awakens, Rogue One, and Last Jedi all scored
Did
high
they actually
with
win
critics.
anything, though?
I think a few technical awards.
Cinematography,
okay, yeah.
Lighting,
Yeah.
direction, that kind of stuff.
But let's face it, sci-fi movies aren't exactly
No, they're not.
They're not made for the Academy, which is fine. Not going to complain about that. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to play the Shape of Water miniature game.
No.
Or the English Patient RPG.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really see those. Those aren't made for our type of audience. So as much as I appreciate the fact that they're making some strides in the artistic realm, there's still sci-fi movies.
John
There's still Star
Boyega,
Wars.
Right.
Yeah, John Boyega rebooting The Notebook. Let's do that.
Yeah.
But so having them release it at Cannes, the thing that I think is most striking to me is they've kind of changed their MO of holding their cards close to their chest. They've always been releasing the merchandise and things like that, but you don't want people seeing the movie and giving spoilers.
Well, and that's why it's the big risk, because that's not your audience. If all the cheese, if the wine and cheese crowd goes, it sucked, 10 days before release, Yeah, I mean, there's already a cloud over the movie. So.
Yeah. Maybe they believe in it so much that they're willing to release it out there into the wild early, and they think it'll speak for itself, and maybe dispel some of this early kind of doom and gloom. With the previous directors before Ron Howard came on, there was a lot of speculation about how bad it was going to be. Maybe they're trying to control that spin a little bit and saying, hey, if we believe it this much, we're going to put it out there, quality product. You guys should check it out.
But they have been fairly quiet about it. I mean, especially compared to what you saw with The Last Jedi, where they were, they had merchandise in Target and Walmart for months ahead of time.
There's only been the one trailer so far. They it's not a big event when they do a new trailer. The movie's really on the down low. So going to Cannes is.
I'm kind of excited for that, though. Yeah. Obviously, I'm going to be excited for a Star Wars movie. It's goes without saying, but I think the fact that they're not making it overhyped to begin with. They did the same thing with Rogue One, though, too. I think when they're doing these, like the Star Wars story films, there's not going to be like a spoiler that we're not going to know about. I mean, we know Han's not going to die. We know Lando and Chewie are not going to die.
I wonder if they'll make it through the Kessel Run.
Yeah. Maybe we'll find out why Han Solo has that chin scar.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we'll have River Phoenix come back from the dead to get whipped in the face.
Or maybe there'll be like more symbolism with those dice. I don't know. We'll see something. With that.
Yeah. It featured heavily in Last Jedi.
I'm just want to see what Emilia Clarke's going to do because I love Emilia Clarke.
Right.
I love her eyebrows.
I just love her. But yeah, with the new release of Solo, or with the upcoming release of it, we've seen a little bit of promotion for it. They did a tie-in with Denny's,
of all places, right? Yeah,
sounds like a grand slam to me.
God, no.
Is that a Denny's thing, or did I?
We're gonna put you on a pun limit,
right?
Okay, there's one, guys. There's one. What's my limit?
Matt. I hereby bequeath to you the Legion Outriders podcast jock collar. Here you go. It's yours. No.
Restraining bolt.
Yours are activated by rants, and Matt's are activated by puns. But with the Denny's promotion, we saw the debut of a brand new character.
Therm Scissorpunch. Yeah. I don't know, man. We're going back to the old days, though. I mean,
because
Prune Face and Hammerhead, and just like, what is this thing? Yeah.
For anybody who is, I guess, our generation, my generation, who didn't come, wasn't really of age when the original Star Wars movies dropped. They kind of, came along. Like for me, I got into Star Wars with the 25th anniversary, re-releases of them. But
oh my,
they already had names for all the characters in the cantina. But when the original Star Wars came out, they just kind of had,
I still refer to that guy as Hammerhead.
Do you?
Yes, I know he's an Ithorian, but
yeah,
he's a Hammerhead too.
See, but all of these backstories and names and character mythos, those all developed long afterwards within the expanded universe. So with this Therm, and he has an actual last name. It's got
that's what it is. Yeah. It says it right there on the card. And from the Denny's thing. It's not Therm Scissorpunch.
Well, that's his. I think that's his nickname. But I'm guessing that Han Solo gave him.
How do you get the nickname Scissorpunch?
Well, he's a giant lobster.
Yeah, literally a giant click lobster.
He kind of looks like I don't know, one of the bad villains from
like
Power
a lobster
Rangers.
Thermidor.
Looks like a Power Ranger villain, like circa 1993.
Right.
But it could be like just Han Solo's nickname for him. I don't know.
Still better than Elon Sleaze Bagano.
Still the worst name ever of all time. Yeah.
Give him the clamps.
I think I'll go home and rethink my life.
Yeah, you should. Yeah. Yes.
But it's cool to see any little bit of promotion for the new movie, and I'm excited for the film.
I am too.
Regardless.
How do you not be excited for a Star Wars film?
And anything, like I said, with Childish Gambino / Donald Glover you could put him in anything and I will watch it.
They're making this movie so swaggy.
Do you watch it? Do you watch Atlanta?
I've actually watched a couple episodes. I need to watch more of it.
I need to check that out because I like him too. Yeah.
Anyway, so we got some good Star Wars stuff coming for you, and we'll talk more about the Solo film as we get closer to that and see some more trailers for it. But right now, we're gonna get back to the things that really matter.
Legion,
the Star Wars Legion.
Yay!
So as we've been putting things together, Josh has his army pretty much done now. It looks like
I've got 800 points at least.
The painting's done.
The painting's done. Yeah. a certain person who shall remain nameless, I won't name names, said that...
Is it Therm?
No. Although I did feel very Scissorpunch.
Therm Scissorpunch?
When,
yes.
My life's work was insulted and put down.
Well, that's not scissor punchy at all.
I was focusing on the people and not the bases so much. So, most of my bases are, had the guys glued, I glued the guys onto it, and then I shot it all with the black undercoat, and the bases are still just plain in black and a little dusting dry brush.
So
on
I think
it.
you said that I said.
Oh, I'm not naming names, sir. No, sir.
A person who could pass for me as a doppelganger and is probably me.
That was the administrator of our Facebook account that wrote that.
Which is not me. But what did you say? That it looks like crap? Or?
No, you said they looked boring.
They looked boring because they were boring.
Well, they
look
boring,
unfinished.
And I'm okay with boring.
But so I historically come from a Warhammer background fantasy, and that was always the thing. It was faces, bases, shields. Those were the things that made your minis pop. And when you just have black plastic, it's not they look bad; they just look unfinished. So
I come from X-Wing, where you can't do anything.
Okay,
to the bases,
so you're not an X-Wing anymore.
No.
Sorry, sweetheart. We got to step it up a little.
Those are rookie numbers.
Yeah, you got to pump those numbers up. But no, we talked about some easy things you could do to really just kind of bring it out, and we definitely got some great advice solicited on the Facebook page.
And
from
thank
people.
you for everybody that did that. So I'm either going to go with like an interior grading kind of look, which you said that we'll take.
Oh
a look
yeah,
at
there's
that. Or what I was thinking of doing is taking some something similar to like GW Astrogranite and doing that on the bases, and then if you go and get corkboard. You can paint it and then dry brush it, and it looks like concrete rubble walls.
Yes,
That's
and
right.
then I was going to take that and kind of, distribute that amongst the minis to make it look like it's just kind of an urban, and then maybe a couple of tufts of kind of a very
little static grass or something.
Yeah. But grass that's very environment neutral.
Sure.
Just kind of a light green. Could be desert. Could be here. Could be just growing out of a road somewhere.
Quick disclaimer: we're not advocating anybody go out and change their bases yet until we get an official tournament doc yet.
Right.
But,
and that's the other thing. When we asked on Facebook, a lot of folks were like, clear bases. But a lot of the custom bases that you're seeing right now, if you look at the base and I didn't even realize this until I looked at the actual movement tool, the inside of the movement tool is beveled. So
Really?
It's a very slight bevel to fit exactly against the bases, which obviously you look at the bases and you can see there's a slight beveling in there. Well, what's been happening is people have been posting up pictures of their clear bases on Facebook, and they're flat-sided. So what that's causing is you're getting an incorrect fit.
Imprecise movement.
But it's, if you do a double move, it could be as much as 4 or 5 millimeters, So, you do that over the course of 3 or 4 rounds, and you've got a pretty significant advantage of, movement.
And it's happened at least once per game to me where I've had to lay the range tool in between, and we're looking at maybe a 1 or 2 millimeter difference.
Yeah. So I'm really reluctant until we actually see tournament rules to do anything with
to
the
go
bases,
full mod
because,
happy with it.
Yeah. And obviously, they've said that the hobby portion is part of, and obviously we've seen FFG minis that have basing on them.
Sure.
So obviously doing basing is okay. Just what's allowable, and that's kind of the issue I have with not seeing tournament rules yet is people are making mods to their stuff and painting stuff and putting stuff on bases. And we really have no idea if that's going to be tournament legal or not.
Yeah. Well, again, this is one of those things for official FFG, tournaments. It might make a difference at your local game store.
But yeah, absolutely not.
Check with your TO. If things are reasonable, I can't imagine them having. Oh, you got a little corkboard basing in there, so he's standing on some rocks. Cool. It looks good, man.
Sure.
Play it.
Right. But,
there's no obvious advantage going on.
But
there.
if it gets something to the point of, there's rules in the game where you have to be in base contact with something. Okay, well, if I've got something that juts out over the lip of the base, does that count as base contact? If I have something that prevents me from achieving base contact, well, how do you mitigate? How do you deal with that within the rule set? We don't know yet.
I think the two most important things that you have to consider when you're looking at modifying your bases, try to keep the original FFG bases that they came with. just so you're not dealing with any of the issues of the beveled edges. But I think the two most important things you got to remember are don't extend anything beyond the width of the actual base, and don't extend the height of the model off the base. There are ways to give a three-dimensional appearance, like you said, with those corkboard rocks and things like that. You can scatter around the Mini, but don't alter how, make sure he is on that base, and make sure nothing sticks out over that edge of that base. And I think any modifications you want to make beyond that point, you're probably good to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's the main reason why I haven't done anything yet, because I just don't want to.
That's the reason.
I'm worried about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You're in a holding pattern.
Well, that, and I want to finish painting all of my models, but I'm choosing to glue my stuff down before I do any basing to it, just specifically for that reason.
Yeah. Because
I don't want to go and give that little advantage. And now my entire army is now not tournament legal, which for me I care about.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me, because I'm planning on playing organized play, hopefully premier events, stuff like that. So very reluctant, but we got a lot of great ideas out there from a lot of folks. So thank you to everybody for all of that.
And
that was awesome.
Your camo pattern does look really good.
Thank you.
It does look cool.
Yeah.
Even if it does at some points look like set dressing from a 1980s Prince music video. But
that's
it's not necessarily a bad thing. As a Prince fan, it's not a bad thing.
Oh yeah, no, we get some raspberry berets on there. That'd be great.
Yeah, you'll find out what it's like when doves cry, baby.
What is it like?
You found out the other night. When we
sure. Yeah. No, there was no doves crying, just me.
So what are your thoughts on clear bases? We saw a lot of suggestions for those.
So I get it. I can see why people would do it, because again, like I said on the Facebook post, I'm very OCD about things matching. So if you have a clear base, it automatically looks like the people are in whatever environment they are, because it's just the mat coming through. You mentioned that it makes it look like they're ice skating.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you do that, you end up with Darth Boitano.
Yeah, Darth Boitano. But for me, when I'm playing and looking at units, I'm not necessarily looking at
ice capades.
The bases themselves.
Okay.
I look at my units and I see where my units are, and it's kind of like one of those things where you see something on something, but because you're focusing in a certain spot, you don't notice the rest of it. A clear base, I don't think I would notice, and it would look like the people are actually on the environment that they're on, right?
If you can suspend disbelief with it, you're right. It does match any environment, and for that sake, it looks cool. But every time I see photos of it, I'm just like, Star Wars on ice.
I mean, I've never sat there with like my movement tool as I'm getting ready to move something, or the range rulers I'm measuring, and gone, man, those bases look great. I'm looking at the minis and everything. So, and if you're watching from a distance away, a couple feet away, you might not even see the bases. You might just see the people.
That's very true. Yeah.
So whereas if you're watching from a couple feet away and you've got somebody with a desert base on an Endor map, you're like, I don't know about that. So I could see why people like them. Especially.
I still think you're crazy.
Of course I am.
You're crazy.
Yes, I am. I can see why people like them. I mean, I don't think it's going to be something I do, because, I like, now that I've thought about it more, I like the idea of the hobby aspect. But I can see why folks don't like it or think it's, on ice and stuff like that. So
it's one of those that's all up to personal preference.
Now, if I had clear bases on a Hoth map, would you be okay with it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Right.
I'd be okay on any map.
Hey, let it go.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, you don't get to do that.
Oh.
You don't get to do that.
No, I'm just jealous I didn't get there first.
So what are you doing with your bases, John?
So all mine are done with the Endor. So I bought a couple of different basing kits.
Yeah.
There's a little train shop, or Hobby Town USA or something like that here. I picked up some flock, some green flock. I picked up a darker color of like undergrowth shrubbery, and then I picked up from Michael's. They've got those moss kits. I've never seen those, like bags of dried out moss, and you just tear little bits of that up, scattered around there, and it gives a very lush, I guess, jungle floor kind of appearance. I think those worked out pretty well. Did just a base brown underneath it. The ring, some people are really particular about the the color of the ring, the lower ring of the base.
Yeah.
I'm partial to just leaving it brown. Some people are like, no, it needs to be black
or green or something. Yeah,
sure.
I heard some people like they'll color it for their commander,
and
then
the
other one's neutral.
Yeah, I was thinking about making like hash marks so I know which ones go on which squads. I've got first squad, second squad, third squad. That way I don't have to cart tokens around with them.
Sure.
It's just, oh look, this is third squad. See, 3 marks on the bases.
And especially if you've got an army where you bubble up a lot.
Right.
We'll talk a little bit about that with Veers later on, but there are some armies that have a strategy of keeping their units within a close range of their commander. Well, if you've got 4 units close to your commander and they're all they're all stormtroopers, they're all regular rebel troopers, it's going to be kind of hard to differentiate who belongs in what unit. So painting the lower ring for that, I think that works great. I'm not terribly partial to it because I think I care about how my models look on a display case more than I do.
Sure, yeah, and I mean, I don't do the display case end of it too. So yeah.
Matt, what are you doing with yours?
No,
John, what am I doing?
Yeah, I was going to say. What,
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we need to ask Matt what he's going to have you do with his bases.
Yeah,
but you wanted to go with
I'm
Endor
excited.
too, right?
Was that?
Yeah.
Honestly, if you
so I'll probably just do exactly what I did with mine with yours.
They look good. So
we've kept them brown for now, just because we've been kind of moving them back and forth between the
demo set.
The demo set with the Tatooine base, and and then of course I picked up some poster tubes. We'll talk about that on a later hobby segment.
Forget the poster tubes. I want you to talk about your Vader real quick.
Oh yeah, so I haven't posted the photo yet. I'll get it up on online today.
Take a second to look this up because it's a treat.
So I mentioned it earlier where I bought 2 core sets, so I figure I got 2 Vaders. I don't need to have 2 of the same Darth Vader, so I hacked the head off one of them, and I glued a Space Marine Scout Sergeant head with a little burn damage and stuff on there, and even though the scale's a little bit different, it looks normal. I think it looks like a helmetless Vader.
So how did you get the head off of? Because when it comes unassembled, it's the body and then the arm and then like just a head and a cape.
So yeah, I basically.
At what point did you cut the head off?
Lightsabers,
right at the neck.
right when old Sheev said,
"No." I mean, did you glue the cape onto the model, then cut the head off, or did you cut the head off the cape?
So I cut the head off the cape.
At what point in the assembly did you cut the head off of the cape?
Oh, I glued it all together and then cut the head off.
Okay, that's what. Yeah. Okay.
And then after that, I took a little bit of green stuff. And green stuff is, for anybody who doesn't know, it's basically like a modeling putty that hardens into basically plastic, but you can still kind of sand it down and carve it. I glued it and then I put green stuff around it, and I kind of just using my thumb blended the green stuff from the base of the head into the cape.
Okay.
So you can still see the chain kind of holding the cape together in the front, but in the back it kind of goes seamlessly from his.
I think it turned out
black.
great.
Yeah, it looks amazing, dude.
Yeah. But I painted it up. I messed around with a little bit of the source lighting.
The specular highlight.
Yeah,
the specular
from
light.
the,
you got the nice saber glow on there.
Yeah. So and I did it with Luke too. Luke's a little easier because Luke being a lighter color, I could just put a little bit of blue glaze and it kind of gives that appearance. But with black, it's tough.
I mean, that's not an easy thing to pull off, though. Either way, I mean, I look at it and there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And I've seen some ones out there that folks tried it and they're like, oh, well, it didn't really work out. And I'm like, yeah, no, it didn't. But so yeah, I appreciate how good that looks because man, it's good.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a fun model to do. And I like to do some customization with 40K. So you got some people who do their own sculpts, and I'm not that talented. Hats off to those guys. Those guys are incredible.
Did you see the Hammerhead one that guy was
yeah, the guy who did the Hammerhead, and I should really reference these names before I come on and talk about it. But shout out to the dude out there who did the Ithorian. He did a Mon Calamari Sergeant.
Completely out of green stuff.
Completely out of green stuff.
And it looks like it was sculpted it came out of the box that way. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, my customization was hacking parts off of other models and putting them on, which that's still fun, but it doesn't have that same level of artistry of the guy who literally sculpted that. So man,
here's to you.
Props to you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it was a fun model to work on, the Vader, and I like that it gave enough disparity between just the normal static pose model. So now I have to figure out what to do with my Luke, my second Luke.
I've got an idea.
What's that?
Cut his hand off?
Yeah, well, no, I was just going to say throw it in the garbage, but
that's not
because that's where Luke belongs.
You're just jealous of his command cards.
Yes, I am.
Well, I thought of doing an old man Luke, put a little beard on him. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
or
cool.
else somebody here, Dawson mentioned putting, a Mace Windu head on him. Put a bald head on there and then do Mace Windu and purple lightsaber. I thought that would be really cool too.
Yeah, that'd be cool too. Yeah.
So I got some options to play around with that, but still got some more hobby stuff to work on.
I've seen people even talk about painting it up like Anakin.
Okay.
From the prequel movies
from
Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
Yeah. Or Clone Wars, Anakin.
Just base him in sand. That's all I ask.
He hates sand.
Oh, it does. Yeah. It's so horrible.
Yeah.
So you can get some little water effect gel to kind of put by his eyes so you can see him crying.
Right. Yeah.
Because
pretty much.
I mean, Anakin,
Yeah.
he's got
a couple of younglings at his feet.
Oh, standing on a pile of youngling heads.
Yeah. We're terrible.
Yeah.
That's enough hobby stuff.
Yeah,
next week we'll talk about that Endor board. I'll try to put together because I got a bunch of poster tubes for those trees. So
cool.
I'm going through tutorials right now trying to figure it out. But once I figure it out, then I'll talk about that a little bit. But let's get into the main topic for today with the game out for a couple weeks now. We've gone through the painting, we've gone through the initial demo sets, but now we're starting to really figure out the strategy, the meat and potatoes of the game. And I think one of the things that is really kind of setting apart some of the players who are really getting it and some of the ones who are just, walking into it is learning how to play the pregame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, turn zero, right?
Yeah.
It's a surprising amount of strategy and depth. Even as down to as granular as do I want to be the red or the blue player?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're the blue player, you get to go first and you get to kind of choose which edge you want, and there's so many choices that you can make. But if you're the red player, you get the absolute last ban. You have the last say on the board edge, great, whatever. You have the last say on what's the last thing that you want to make sure gets banned out of that list. And I think I'm not looking too much when it comes to list building to get that initiative bid because I'm okay with having that last choice to kind of have the last choice on what's going to define the battlefield.
There's nice upsides and downsides to both, but either way, it's going to have a dramatic effect on how the game is played.
And I think that, being the red player, like you said, there's some strategy to that as well because sometimes you want to be the last person to put that last unit out there. Like if you've got an ATST on the board, maybe you don't want to put the ATST on the same side as their land speed or their speeder or their ion troopers.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and or depending on how the layout is, if you've got the disarray card, which the one that makes you put units in opposing corners.
Yep.
And you have to put units in opposing corners. If you're playing an Imperial player and you've got the ATST with the mortar pod, and your opponent decides that they're going to put infantry away from your commander, well, guess where I'm going to make sure I'm putting my ATST so I can mortar pod you round one and potentially flee one of your units right off the board. Being the red player has a lot of advantages.
Now, have you played that disarray map yet?
I have not. I've only played the one map, and the map we ended up playing was Major Offensive, which really worked for the conditions that we were playing.
That's the L-shaped corner.
That's the L-shaped corner one, yeah. And Matt, didn't. He kind of teased me about my choice of playing Major Offensive because I had Vader. And we were playing the, I think it's Breakthrough, which is the.
Yep, you want to have your unit leaders in the enemy deployment
zone. He's like, you got to truck Vader all the way into your enemy deployment zone, and I'm like, well, that's not really my strategy here. So
and I think you did win that game, but against a competent player, I don't think it would have paid off.
It's my first game, man.
Yeah. So I don't want you to feel like you played that right.
Oh wow! Oh, you hurt me.
So there's, three, for anyone who hasn't really spent a lot of time with this yet, you've got the three different variables, I guess you could say, that go into the beginning of a game. You've got the deployment maps that we talked about. You've got, the mass mass overdrive, where you got the L-shaped corners. You've got disarray, which are opposing corners, which, that's an interesting strategy.
Kind of crazy, right?
And then you've got the old tried and true battle lines and long march, which is essentially just the hot dog / hamburger style deployments.
Right. And see, I don't like the long march as an Imperial player.
Wait, why?
Because as an Imperial player, especially with the bikes, those bikes thrive on flanking and maneuverability. The long march narrows the field. You don't have as much of an option to swing them out wide because everything's basically going right down the pipe. I'd rather have 6 feet wide to work with than 3 feet wide any day of the week.
Okay. I guess it depends on your list, because I could see where if you were running like double ATST or a lot of rockets or something like that had that range 4 band, that gives you just extra time to get those ranges in. But yeah, if you're doing like a triple bike build or something like that, yeah, I could see that.
And that's also the issue with the long march with an ATST with the mortar pod, because that condenses your line of sight, because now instead of having a 6 foot long area that I can corner in ATST, and pretty much if I put it down last, I can see where your infantry units are and pick a line of sight. With the way terrain gets laid out on those boards, with having it be so narrow, the chance of you having line of sight unobstructed the all the way the clear way across the board with everything so narrow, I don't think it's quite as good.
I think we can all agree, though, that you don't want to send your air speeders in triple moving up the side of the board first turn.
No, not before any one of those. That's the one. Yeah. I made a huge mistake in that game, and I learned my lesson. And
that's right. That happened to you, right? Yeah.
I haven't learned again since
targets.
But it depends a lot on what objectives
there's that too.
Objective scenarios you have, because sometimes if you've got a lot of objectives that are towards the center, you're going to have to actually force your opponent to move out of that line of sight blocking terrain.
Yeah. Or even the battlefield conditions can alter it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we got a few of the battlefield conditions, and my favorite is limited visibility.
Hate it.
Josh, you love that one, right?
Hate it. Again, ATST with the mortar pod. Hate it.
Yeah, that's a tough cookie when you're want to engage as early as possible, and you're like, no.
So limited visibility, for those who don't know, that's the one where during the first round, each unit's line of sight beyond range 2 is blocked, and then during the second round, each unit line of sight beyond range 3 is blocked. So essentially, it kind of works like, for those Warhammer players, the night fight. It adds a little bit of difficulty to shooting long range, and you're right. If you rely on your mortar pod, which is 4+, those first 2 turns, you're not shooting any mortars.
It's wasted points. I mean, yeah. So, and it's a waste of your ATST. So, I'm not a big fan of that card. And I think that's the first ban opportunity that I had in our game. That was the first card I got rid of. I'm like, nope, go away.
But there are ways to counter that. I mean, if you know it's going to be coming up, you got to really watch your deployments. If you have a chance to get somebody within range 2 turn 1, which is completely possible, especially on a battle line scenario or something like that, you still might be able to get them, especially if they're uncautious with some of their deployments or movements.
Yeah, they got, overzealous with an airspeeder.
Why do you keep bringing that up?
I know, right?
But I myself, I really like limited visibility if I'm running a troop-heavy list.
Sure, yeah,
because
absolutely.
if you know that, especially if you're playing an objective scenario where you just want to outlast your opponent. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm playing 6 rebel troopers and you've got 2 ATSTs, I know you can shoot me off the board an unlimited number of turns. Mm-hmm. I'm just hoping to get through these 6 turns with as many guys left alive to jump on those objectives.
Yeah, I mean, and you probably want long march.
Exactly.
Too, because then you can narrow everything up and just basically make a big ball of doom and just kick it right up the board. Yeah.
Now, if you and your opponent are playing against each other and, say you really didn't want that long march and you really didn't want limited visibility, but I wanted one of those too. Now, if that falls on the 3rd spot, or the furthest to the right, if that's that card there, and I really want that one, I will strategize to use both of my get rid of that card on the 2 in front of it, and I can guarantee myself that card will be there.
Right.
Hopefully your opponent might oblige you and get rid of one of them for especially that first one.
Yeah, well,
if you get lucky,
Yeah.
If you get lucky, when I played against Joe for the first time and that limited visibility popped in that spot, And I think he knew that I wanted that card, or maybe I just got super excited because I have no poker face whatsoever.
Ooh, limited visibility, yay!
He's got a poker beard, but that's about it.
But he knew I wanted that one, but there was really nothing he could do about it at that point. So I think he just tried to set up the deployment map and the objective scenario to try to benefit him.
Right.
And so there's a lot of strategy going into that. There's the clear conditions is the other scenario that I guess is helpful for that because it just has no effect whatsoever.
Yeah.
So that removes that variable from it. You got hostile terrain, which means that trooper units whose unit leader is not in base contact with a piece of terrain cannot remove suppression tokens. So if you're playing against Vader,
now is that just at the end of the round?
During the end phase.
End phase. Okay, yeah. So that's that one free that you get to pull at the end of the round. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're if you have ATSTs or if you have Vader and part of your game relies on throwing suppression on your opponent, that might be a good one to go for.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the last one is the rapid reinforcements. And that one is, starting with the blue player, each player sets aside up to 2 non-commander trooper units and their order tokens, marking each unit with a condition token. At the end of the command phase of round 2, players add these set-aside order tokens to their order pools. And when a player draws a token with a rank that matches the set-aside unit, if there are no other unactivated units with a matching rank, they must place that unit on the battlefield beyond range 2 of all enemy units. That unit is treated as activated, and its order token is placed face down on the battlefield. Deep strike.
Yeah.
I've gotten to play that a couple of times now. I think it's one of my favorites.
It is. It's cool. It kind of
really throws a kind of a monkey wrench into basically you're already seeing kind of the table stabilize a little bit. You can kind of see where people are moving in, and then just having those units just appear on the board and like, okay, now I got to shift my strategy to deal with them, or how can I exploit my troops, working towards the victory objectives, or getting a troublesome unit out of the way for me.
And it's one thing that, not to reference 40K all the time, but with 40K, one thing you have to think about is watching your backfield because things that you leave vulnerable back there could be, targets for deep striking units. So say you've got 2 ATSTs sitting in the back thinking, well, I don't need to worry about protecting these guys.
Surprise!
All of a sudden, you get, 2 Ion Trooper units that pop up in your backfield. Yep. You're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So
I actually managed to do that completely by accident, where I didn't leave just enough space so they had a range 2 into my backfield. There was just a small gap, not enough to get an actual unit. And I was like, wow, I should really plan for that in the future.
Yep.
But it definitely worked out in my favor that time.
Yeah, so those are all variables that you have to consider and ones that can really alter the game as well. And then, of course, the way you win the game is scoring the most victory points. And most of the scenarios require you to get those through the objectives. And, some of the objectives, they require you to have troop units. So that's part of the reason why, it's great to have these double ATST lists, which may be feasible when Veers drops. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things that you have to think about is you have to have a minimum of 3 troopers. And if you can only score objectives with those during some of these scenarios, you're going to want to make sure that you can keep those guys alive. So I don't know if that's
and it's the thing you got to watch when you're looking at the cards is some of the cards say trooper units, and some of the cards just say unit leader.
Yep.
So if you march, if you've got the one where you've got to get your folks into the enemy's deployment zone, it just says unit leader.
Yep.
Well, the ATST is its own unit leader, so you can march that puppy right into there and turtle up and
But you didn't do that. You just sat in your own deployment zone.
I did. Yeah. Except for the one bike.
If I had one unit survive.
Except for I had a bike going back there, but
then
I stupidly left it out of cover.
That was fun.
Out of line of sight, or in line of sight to get shot at. Oops, because I'm a dummy. Hey, it was my first game.
How long are you going to milk that for?
A KG veteran such as yourself.
Oh yeah, no.
You're experienced with this game. You've seen the war. You know.
KG, yes, competent. No.
Well, with the 4 objective cards that we get with the core set, 3 of them rely on objectives. 1 of them doesn't. Breakthrough is the one that is the outlier here. And that one is at the end of the game, each player gains 1 victory token for each of their unit leaders within an enemy deployment zone.
Right.
So this one's going to benefit the people who like to run, as many units as possible. So you're running your 6 units of troopers.
Human weight.
I've got 10 drops and they're all going there.
Exactly. And if you have a unit like that, you try to keep them alive as long as possible, and then you rush the enemy zone, and hope you can get as many in there as possible. That's it's not something you're going to want if you're playing a double ATST list.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah. So.
And of course, that is every or unit leaders. So the vehicle airspeeder. And your ATST aren't going to be able to score at all.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm already to the point where it's like 4's not enough. Yep, I'm ready to go buy.
Repeat what you just said.
I don't know what I said.
What isn't able to score at all?
ATST or a rebel or a
they
airspeeder?
are.
Yeah, they can. Yeah,
because they're their own unit
leader. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you weren't.
No. Sorry, scratch that. My bad.
ATST. Yeah, everything is its own. Every unit has a unit leader.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, then there we go.
It's just a unit leader of one.
I read it correctly and misinterpreted it.
That's like FFG loves throughout all of its game are friendly units at range 1. Well, I am friendly to myself, and I am at range 1 of myself. Usually that
that's
kind
fair,
of effect.
Yeah.
Usually that kind of effect. You read a card, and that's the kind of effect that affects the other ships or other units with friendly units within range 1. And it's like, well, that helps me too because I am friendly to myself, and I am at range 1 of myself.
Okay.
So same kind of thing there. Yeah.
The other 3 scenario cards that we have, the objectives. You got key positions, which is the one where you basically have the terrain pieces as objective tokens. And Matt and I kind of learned from this one that
was a head scratcher when we were doing that.
That's one where I think it's going to come into play with the objective set that's coming out, the expansion.
Do we know what cards are getting put in that yet?
We don't, and that's gonna add another wrinkle.
We
to
need it.
Yeah.
We need more cards. I don't think 4 is
more
enough.
play scenarios. Bring them on.
Absolutely, but I think that's going to be something that's going to change. It's going to keep the game constantly evolving. You won't have the.
And I would prefer to see the game evolving by conditions to win than the meta of the units themselves.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with you. And then, like I said, the other 3 are all objective token based ones. Now, some of them allow you to claim. Now, recover the supplies. This
you
one
cart it around with you.
Yeah. All trooper units gain the claim an objective token that is in base contact with your unit leader. So it takes you 1 action. This is one thing that we learned last game was it costs an action to actually claim it. So if you need to move into contact with the objective and then spend your second action to claim it. So that's one thing but it will travel around with you.
Yeah, it's basically like a capture the flag.
Exactly, yeah.
No, I had a great experience with this the other day with a guy that was new to the shop, but we had an awesome game. Basically, and Sergeant Steve, one of my last stormtroopers in the unit, he was able to run up, grab the objective, and then hightail it behind a building. And it was a really close game, but a lot of fun. But so those units, as long as you got 1 guy left, they can claim objective points. And, 1 guy isn't really contributing to the fight unless he's holding a scenario objective.
Right.
Now, for some of these, I've been noticing that it's actually advantageous to keep 1 minimum man squad. So 1 4-man squad that you don't put a heavy weapon in. Their sole purpose is either hold a backfield objective or grab an objective and move behind line of sight. Because with 4 men, it's easier to hide out of line of sight than it is with 6.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of mileage with doing that and just keeping 1 unit, kind of out of the way, not wasting too many points on them, and using only to score objectives.
No, I'm definitely coming around on those minimum unit squads. I've got a new list I'm working on that's going to try and exploit those a little bit.
Okay. With Rebels or Imperials?
Rebels. Nice. I'm having the most trouble with Rebels right now, so I'm trying to really kind of crack the code on them.
Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of line of sight, I realized something like yesterday about how you can maximize cover when you're talking about barricades. And I know this is a complete tangent, but it's cool, so I thought I would share it because we were talking about the cover. So if you've got a unit of 6 troopers, or an even number, 2, 4, whatever, if you put half of the people in front of the barricade and half of the people behind the barricade, you essentially have, unless they're shooting directly from the sides of the barricade, you essentially, because of the line of sight rules, have 360-degree cover 2.
Absolutely.
That is the most cheesy thing ever, and I'm going to spam the hell out of it. I was like, wait a minute. Why am I just getting everybody behind the barricade? Why don't I put some people in front of the barricade? And now and it's the most counterintuitive thing ever because
we'll pretend they've gone prone and taken up.
You're gaining an advantage by putting people in what ostensibly should be a more vulnerable position. Yeah.
Now you're learning the game within the game.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I'm learning how to cheese it. It's tasty cheese, but cheese none the same. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled strategy update.
So with the last card that we had left, the Intercept the Transmissions, and now this one is the one where you actually score after rounds 2, rounds 4, and at the end of the game. So this one, you have 3 objectives out there, basically one directly at the 50-yard line, and you've got 2 of them halfway towards the end zone.
Yeah, red line, blue lines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, hockey.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Hockey references out there. I feel like American football might be more
whatever.
more universally understood, but
sure,
we know hockey.
Yeah.
Plus,
ice hockey?
Ice hockey, true.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
not like field hockey.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah.
But with Intercept the Transmissions, you're getting 1 point per objective at the end of round 2, 1 point per objective at the end of round 4, and then 2 points per objective at the end of the game. So this is one of those where, it might not be super smart to just keep your guys, sitting in cover for 4 rounds and then trying to rush out there at the end.
Well, I mean, and that's kind of how I've seen. That's kind of how I've seen both games that I've seen now played with that condition played, where the units for whatever reason just kind of took their first objective, scored points, shot at each other across the map, and then tried to make a mad dash for that last one in the middle for the very last last turn, because you only need to score the extra 1 to win the game.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we'll see.
I feel like all of them are different enough that they really, diversify each game. No game will play exactly the same with those 4 scenarios.
It makes you have a really generalist army.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly. Yeah.
You can't. Yeah, you have some control over it, but if you bring an army that's a human wave army and you get a disadvantageous deployment zone or something like that, then you're hosed.
And one thing I love about Legion is very few of the games that I've played is it one person shoots the other person off the board.
Right.
I mean, it's great to just, put models on the table, pick them up, put them away.
Right.
That's always satisfying.
Yeah.
But
it's satisfying to put your models on the table and make the other person pick up their models and put them away.
But with 40K, it seems like there are so many people who, when they show up to a tournament, have no real plan for the objectives other than to just blow the other person off the table.
Right.
It's like, if I can make the other person, pick up all their models, that's it. That's it.
It's an auto win. Yeah.
So I like that this game actually makes you play, to try to actually accomplish.
Yeah, hopefully we'll avoid the leaf blower scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the other things that goes into playing the game within the game is the command cards. And now we've only had Luke and Darth Vader so far, so we kind of mastered those cards, when to play those cards, and when we were expecting our opponents to play their respective cards. But we're starting to see some of these new releases coming out. We're starting to see individual cards that these new commanders have, and they're going to add a lot of distinct differences to the game. Now, Josh looks like he's pretty excited here.
I'm ready for Veers, man. They did the preview article Tuesday, was it? Yeah,
a couple days
ago, and man, Vader has a lot of cards that are risk reward. Come with a cost. Hey, I can sacrifice one of my guys to do it.
I can take a wound.
To do it. It's like, Veers, there's no downside. Like, I get a free, essentially, orbital strike. Okay. They balance that by it not being a true orbital strike, I guess. Line of sight rules still apply. Veers has to be able to see them. You can't just pick a unit anywhere on the board and try and auto-delete,
Yeah.
So I guess that's the disadvantageous thing. But, the big thing right now with HH-12 troopers is you got to spend an action to reload them, and they're very immobile. Veers has a card that lets you do a free recover action. Thank you. I can aim and fire, and then aim and fire the very next round with the
him and General Weiss just kind of high five it out.
Yeah.
Get back out there.
Yeah.
Come on, sport.
Man, so good.
So
this is so good.
Just to kind of clarify exactly what you're talking about here. This week we saw the release of all of Veers's command cards. And he's three that he was talking about. The 1 pip card is called Maximum Firepower, and that's the orbital strike you talked about. Basically, at the end of General Veers' action, he may perform an action or an attack using the following weapon, and it's a range 4+, 4 red die, impact 2, immune to deflect. It's like, oh, hi Luke, sorry, trying to deflect. Yeah, you're not deflecting this.
Yeah.
So that's a nasty card. Of course, that only order can go to General Veers. So if you're playing that, you're going first, but General Veers is the only one.
Sure, but I mean that's a great turn 1 card.
Absolutely,
because I can issue my order to General Veers, ATST with a mortar pod, put a ton of suppression on units. You've automatically suppressed Luke right there.
Yeah.
With that attack, you've ATST mortar pod. If you're lucky enough to roll a hit or crit with the suppressive keyword, and then follow it up with that, you've automatically limited Luke to 1 action on the first turn. That could be pretty big.
Yeah, I think it could also be fun the other way too. If you maybe hold it in reserve, you have a Sergeant Steve scenario who ran up, grabbed an objective. Well, guess what, buddy? Here comes frickin' a AT-AT shooting all of his forward barrage at you. So drop that objective right now.
The other thing with that card though is because it is a 1 pip card, you kind of want to keep those 1 pip cards, especially if you're playing against Luke. Mm-hmm. Where you want to make sure that you can try to
at least
keep
get that
him
50-50 roll off.
Exactly.
Right.
So I mean, you're going to have ambush more than likely. So you can always keep that in reserve.
Yeah.
But I think that factoring that 1 pip might make a difference when you actually play it.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
The first turn, very few people are playing 1 pip cards, and getting the first action on the first turn isn't always
not really a big deal. Who cares?
Thing.
I mean, you're not unless you've got something that goes forward to the board edge. You're not shooting that first round.
Yeah.
Unless somebody's dumb enough to triple move a speeder right into your field of fire.
Who would do that?
I don't know.
Ridiculous.
I don't know. Yeah.
His second card is 2 pip card called Evasive Maneuvers, and that can only be issued to 2 vehicles. And when a friendly vehicle unit is issued an order, it gains a dodge token. So right off the bat, if you've got 2 ATSTs or ATST and a speeder bike unit, those 2 are getting dodge tokens.
Yeah.
And friendly vehicle units can spend those dodge tokens to cancel out critical hits.
Which is great.
That is huge.
Yeah,
especially
that's
for
really
ATST,
huge.
where that's the only thing that can actually wound it.
But it's also big for speeders because, or for bikes because they're fragile.
Yeah.
They white dice, no surge, they die quick.
And that
being able to ignore
hits,
those criticals lets them keep that cover safe.
Exactly.
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
So I mean that's huge too.
Yeah, and that works well for both your speeder bikes and ATSTs, but it also kind of shows you that if you're going to be playing some long range speeder bikes, you may want to put those long range comms on there.
Right. Yeah.
The third card that he has is the 3 pip Imperial Discipline, and this is the one that you talked about. We're recovering orders, recovering actions. It's General Veers in 2 units, so any 2 units. And when a friendly unit is issued an order, it may recover. So, like you said, with HH-12s, if you've got exhausted rocket launchers, play this card. All of them come back to being full. Saves you an action there.
It also sheds all suppression too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's huge.
You could even run it with Vader if you want to get crazy and do Veers Vader and just
you could. That's
have him go
huge
ham. Obviously, but I'm just saying you could if he went ham on his force powers one turn, just ready them all up the next.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And of course, too, with the ATST, if you had General Weiss
retaps
using him to fire off 4 weapons that exhausts him
2 rounds in a row.
Exactly. So that opens up some nasty possibilities. So he's got some really good abilities.
Yeah.
And of course, with his expansion, we're going to see 2 cards come out along with him. Upgrades: Esteemed Leader, which basically gives your guys look out, sir.
Yeah. Bubble wrap.
Yeah.
I mean, because I mean the first thing I saw when you look at Veers, he's like 5 hit points, something like that. It's he's not all that tanky.
Yeah, he's 5.
I don't think. Yeah, 5 and 2 courage.
Okay. For those that don't know what Lookout Sir is,
okay,
what does he actually do?
The official rule is Guardian 1, which means that a friendly unit at range 1 from the commander is defending against a range attack. You may cancel up to 1 hit result. For each result canceled, roll 1 of your defense dice. Convert surges, then suffer 1 wound for each blank result. So,
and that's to the units that are guarding you.
Yes.
That's not a wound to Veers. That's a wound.
Yeah.
So if you've got 3 trooper units around General Veers, that basically allows you to soak 3 points of damage potentially into the stormtroopers instead of into General Veers himself,
who is kind of squishy. He's got what, 6 health?
Yeah. Without that, without having the deflectability like Vader has, Vader and Luke can both mitigate a lot of range attacks by even just the threat of having that deflectability. Yeah. I mean, I had a game last week where I had a snow speeder on its last hit points and shot Darth Vader, and his deflection came back at me and knocked me out of the sky. So even having the threat of that sometimes can be enough to keep someone from shooting at you. Whereas with Veers, he's not quite as squishy. So this keeps him alive longer. Only 5 points though, not that bad. Yeah. And his other upgrade he gets is a 10-point one called Commanding Presence, and this one allows you to extend your issuing order range to 4. So that's kind of huge. So now we have a pretty good idea of what Veers is going to be released with. What are your thoughts, Veers or Vader?
Veers, definitely. I don't think there's... I mean, the command cards are just too good. The innate abilities are just too good. Vader's really... It takes a lot of nuance to play him really well.
Or you just camp him on an objective and he
but I mean...
kills everybody that comes nearby.
There's that too. Saber throwing on air speeders and
taking
stuff like
out
that.
ATRTs left and right.
Yeah. I think you get a lot more flexibility with Veers, not only in what he can do and what he brings to the table and your opponent has to plan for, but also in just general list building.
Oh, yeah. No, I think you can say that Meister Pycelle is very flexible.
Oh, yes, he is. Very flexible. He goes deep. But, I mean, I was just fooling around with Tabletop Admiral today because they've gone and updated all of the released and spoiled Veers stuff. And the list I was able to make was pretty good.
It opens up a lot of options.
It does.
For
points. I had Veers with Esteemed Leader, 5-point card. That's the only upgrade I put on him. Then I had 3 units of DLT stormtroopers with grenades and the extra trooper.
Impact?
A variation.
Oh, okay.
Some with concussion, some with impact.
Sure.
Because I didn't put any HH-12 in the unit. I had a 4th unit of stormtroopers with a grenade and the extra person, so just 5, and no heavy weapon. They got impact grenades because they would be kind of like a close assault force, basically, or a suicide squad. Choose your terminology.
All troopers are suicide squads.
But then was able to put an ATST with the mortar pod and the concussion grenade launcher to cancel out close range cover. Yep. So it's a nice mix of long range, mid range, and short range. And then 2 units of bikes with no upgrades.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
a good list.
That's a lot of stuff. I mean, man, you've got a couple of units of fast flankers. You got 4 units of infantry that all have a decent amount of impact ability, and then you have an ATST.
Yeah,
I mean,
even with throwing that the upgrade on General Veers, you're looking at 85 points. Yeah. I mean, that's about a third.
Cheap.
That's about a third of what Darth Vader costs.
Yeah, I mean, and it just allows you so much more flexibility in your list building. I could have dropped a unit of bikes and put 2 more naked units of stormtroopers out there, and it had 6 core units that you've got to deal with. I mean, there's so many options.
Matt, what do you think? You're gonna go with Veers or Vader?
Did we go Dutch there for a second?
Vader is
the Veers, the Vader. Yeah.
Veers or Vader?
¿Por qué no los dos? No, I'll probably definitely be playing with Veers. I tend to like the more commandery type guys, and it's fun to get choppy with Vader, but I like to have the more buffing, synergizing the troops, because that's where I like to have the fun, is with the units. So he definitely gives me that, but I'm not ready to write Vader off completely yet, but he'll definitely be featured in my list to come for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I wouldn't count Vader out. He certainly has uses. He's a strong unit.
It's sure. Lord Vader, not Count Vader.
Anyway, he just requires a lot more.
You got to plan your list around him.
Yeah, well, you got to plan your list around him because every unit matters.
Can Vader take the leadership upgrade?
No.
That'd probably be a little
That would be so unfair.
Oh, God.
That would be so unfair.
Crazy.
All you go die for me. Well, that's what we're here for, Lord
Okay,
Vader.
everybody, link arms. We're marching up the board now.
Very slowly.
It looks like from what we've seen so far, those are going to be only available to Leia and Veers.
Right.
Okay.
But
fair.
I mean, Veers is great with snowtroopers too.
Yeah.
Because the ability to hand out free aim tokens to a unit that it only moves one, but has the steady keyword that allows them to fire after moving. There's your action economy.
You can start chucking up the board.
You can on that turn. You can move. You can do a double move. You have already got an aim token, and you can shoot. So that takes a unit like snowtroopers that are very immobile and makes them a lot more mobile just through the action economy.
Yeah. No, but that's a good point.
I think the one thing that Imperial players are taking for granted now that you may start to realize is a weakness with Veers, though, is you don't really have to think about your suppression or panicking with Vader on the table.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
With Vader on the table, it's all you don't have to worry about him getting panicked. You don't have to worry about stormtroopers around him getting panicked. If I'm playing against Veers, I'm gonna try to kill Veers right away.
Was he a 3 or a 4?
He's a 2.
2?
He's a 2.
Oh,
But
So
I mean,
he can turn tail and run real quick.
I think Leia's only a 3, and I know Han is a 2 also.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just kind of evening the playing field a little bit. But at the same time, okay, yeah, great, suppression's nice, but here, let me introduce you to all of the units over here that are vehicle based and have no suppression value. Period.
so clearly Krennic's going to be a 3 then.
Yeah.
Probably. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that's something that people have kind of taken for granted for now. And as a Rebel player, I'm looking at this. I'm like, that's cool. You want to run Veers? All right, I'm gonna take Veers out, or try to take Veers out as soon as possible.
Right.
And watch those trooper units panic.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got to have the weapons to get the range to get there too.
True.
But that's the thing with Veers, that he has the ability to spend a card and now you guys don't have free ready action. You don't have suppression anymore.
Yeah.
So you can play the suppression game and try and pile it on. Well, here's my card that makes all your suppression tokens go away.
The other thing that we haven't seen yet that may rear its ugly head is what it looks like when you've got one-sided battles of Jedi versus no Jedi, or lightsabers against somebody who doesn't have a lightsaber.
Sure.
Because the few times where I have gotten Luke into combat with stormtrooper units, he wipes them out quick.
Sure, but I mean, the thing with Luke, and we saw it in the game that I played with Matt, is if you get lucky with a couple of rolls of stormtroopers, maybe you took force reflexes and you've got the deflect. That only does you good against one unit. If you've got 3 units of stormtroopers and that you've got to try and tank through, especially with no defensive surge, you've only got 6 hit points.
Yeah.
They're going to go quick.
True.
Especially if I'm taking a pop at you with a DLT with 2 red dice and then an aim token and precise and yada 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 yada. We'll see. Yeah. I mean, good luck. If you want to charge a Jedi,
one or 2 hits here and there from each unit that's shooting, it adds up. And
if turn 3, I see you starting to come up. Okay, here's my orbital strike card. Thunk.
Yep.
And now I've just kicked half your health out from underneath you, and now you're going to charge my lines. Great, you're going to get your 2 attacks on one unit, and the other 3 units that I've got that you're now 2 inches away from are just going to suicide squad you.
The thing I'm looking forward to the most, I think, during a game is running Luke and having Veers blank on the orbital strike and just doing the shoulder dust.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Everything you just said was wrong. Okay.
That's true for everything I say. Yeah.
I think my final verdict, though, I'm with you guys. I think Veers is probably going to be better than Vader.
And Leia is going to be just as good. I'm going to, because Leia, looking at some of the cards that we have been able to see, she also has an orbital strike type card.
She does.
But
it's spread out, though.
In staying with the kind of the Imperials versus Rebel theme, all of her buff abilities are very defensive in nature. It's going to be a slugfest when we start seeing Veers Leia matchups.
Sure.
Because, you've got offensive buff bot over here, defensive buff bot over there. And it's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah,
it's gonna be great.
Once we start seeing more details on her, we'll get a Luke versus Leia episode out there. I think that'll pretty much wrap it up for our Veers Vader conversation. I think the clear winner here is Veers so far, but we won't know until we see what he does on the table.
Hopefully, yeah, in the next week or two, they'll actually have a drop date for him.
Yeah. So complete non sequitur here. You were talking. Are we going Dutch? Right?
Yish.
You know what the Dutch word for father is, right?
Faja.
Vader.
Oh, that's right.
He was Darth Father the entire time.
It was right there.
It was. It was literally right there. He was Darth Father the whole time.
It's very tight. Yes.
The day I found out about that, I mean, I was so mad. I was so lazy, which is what I would expect from George Lucas. But God, lazy.
The man who brought you Sleaze
Bagano, right? He could have at least put Sleaze Bagano in Japanese or something, man. I mean, come on.
It sounds like Frodo Baggin's disreputable cousin, one of the Townsend
Hey, he's on
Bagganos.
workers' comp, okay?
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I think that'll pretty much wrap it up for today's episode. You guys have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I just wanted to, do a quick shout out to all of our listeners out there. Again, thanks for supporting us. We're glad that you guys are active and involved on our Facebook page, and
for those that may not know where it is,
we'll get to that in a second.
Oh, okay.
But,
Sorry, I was jumping the gun.
Interacting with us, one of the reasons that we like doing this is it's part of building community, and that's one of the things that really gets me involved in wargaming, whether it's at the local level, at the store, it's about the people, right? So thank you to all you folks that are out there listening and commenting and building that community, whether it's online or in the stores or wherever you may be. If you're looking for our digital presences, it's facebook.com/Legion Outriders. And then it's at Legion Outriders on Twitter. Those are really the only two social media. We don't have a
Discord or anything.
Discord or an Instagram.
I might add that later, though.
Any of those things. We are at myspace.com/Legion Outriders also. No, just joking.
/2002.
But please, if you haven't already, leave us a review on the Facebook page. If you're on iTunes or whatever your podcast delivery service of preferences, smash that like button. Give us a review. Let us know how you think we're doing. Let us know if you think there's anything we can improve.
Or any segments you want to hear us talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's something like, hey, dude, next time on the show, talk about clear bases. We already talked about it.
That's pretty transparent.
Yeah.
Is that too? Am I good?
That giant sucking sound you hear is all of our subscribers running away in terror.
They stopped listening.
Yeah, thank God. Hello, Comrade Putin. I'm glad you're still with us.
Yeah.
We did get a download from Vermont, finally.
Oh.
Is Mississippi the last bastion?
I haven't checked, but I've got to check. Anyways, leave us a review, give us a like, leave some comments, let us know. We're here for you guys. So thanks a lot. And Matt, what you got?
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the Race Squadron podcast. Doc Scott, really nice guy, invited me out to talk to them. It was about a week and a half ago now, I think, week or so. But they do X-Wing, but they're doing some Legion also, keeping up with the Race Squadron reputation for fighting on the ground and air. But had a great time. If you get a chance, go ahead and check them out. But had a great time there. It was fun.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to hearing more stuff from those guys too going forward.
Maybe we can have them on the show at some point.
We had talked about that, especially since he was one of his predictions for a elite unit was Inferno Squadron. I'm very excited for that.
Somebody painted up an Inferno Squad.
Yeah, it looks sick.
And I saw it on the Facebook paint group, and it looks amazing.
Yeah, that jet bike that they did. Yeah, it looked really good.
Woo.
I just finished the first campaign for that on Battlefront the other day, and it was really fun.
That game, but that's for another time.
No. The campaign's fun, and I'm going to start the second chapter here soon. But
nice. All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for listening to us here, and hope you have a great week, Outriders. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Legion Outriders podcast.
Only now, at the end, do you understand?
For more from the Outriders, make sure you like us on Twitter at Legion Outriders, subscribe to our Facebook page at facebook.com/Legion Outriders, and make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast. Thanks for listening.
You're all clear, kid. Now let's blow this thing and go home.